React is seen as one of the top front-end frameworks today. It is used in basically all front-end applications due to the ease of use and the low learning curve that it requires. But just because it has a low learning curve does not mean that it's hard. And after a couple of months of trial and error, I've finally gotten React down as a language of mine. So I'd like to talk about how I learned React, my mistakes, and what worked. So React has always been an interest of mine. From the beginning, when I started learning HTML and CSS, everyone was raving about React. And when I first stumbled upon React, it was a couple of months into my coding journey. I barely knew JavaScript, but the way it looked, right? It had a mix of HTML and JavaScript, and even if you installed Tailwind into your application, you could basically write CSS, HTML, and JavaScript in one line of code while making the app much more easier to use for the user. And although I really liked React, there was one issue. I barely knew JavaScript, and trying to do React was just a pain in the ass because it was too hard for me. And in the moment, I wasn't too happy because everyone's talking about React, And just looking at the job market, most of the jobs I've seen use React, and a lot of the startups today are actually founded on either React or Next.js, and Next.js is built upon React, so basically just React. Nonetheless, I took it upon myself to find a way to learn React. So here's the framework of how I taught myself React. The first thing I obviously had to do was learn the basics of JavaScript and web development. If you don't know a lick of JavaScript, you don't know HTML or CSS, please learn those before you go into React. Because if you do, you will understand and get the hang of React so much better. Just learn the basics of JavaScript. And I only learned the basics of JavaScript, but if you don't know any sort of JavaScript, learn that before you go into React. So after I learned JavaScript and finally made the switch to React, here's where a ton of people tend to give up, and I was almost this way. People here make the mistake of judging the language too early and studying the wrong way. And I'll tackle the first things first. React is a very interesting language. The only language that I think you can compare React to is Svelte, because it uses a mix of JavaScript and TypeScript and those things. But React is complicated at first. You're learning how to work with components, you're using a virtual DOM, and it's a different type of operating system compared to JavaScript. So try your best not to judge React right away. Give yourself a couple of months to learn it, because I promise you it's worth it. So let's say you learn JavaScript and you've learned HTML and CSS. Now it's time for you to actually start studying and learning React. Coding is a very special case where you need to learn through theory, so watching videos, watching how programming language works, learning how to do a specific part of a language, and then applying it, because the application part is where you truly get the full knowledge and full scope of the language. And when I started to learn React, all I did was learn theory. I was watching too many videos on React and watching tutorials without actually coding along with the person. And guess what? When it was time to actually work on the projects on my own, I did not know what to do. And it made me feel sad, and it made me upset, because I spent all this time trying to learn React, and it just ended up putting me in this negative feedback loop where I ended up hating React. What you want to do is manage your time between learning, getting your hands dirty. Maybe watch 2 to 3 videos on React teaching you how React works, the theory around React, and how it all interacts together. But once you have the real basics of React theory down, the only way you can get better and learn it is through getting your hands dirty. And what I did was just start working on tutorials and my own projects. Now granted, I am just getting out of the zone where I know just enough that I don't need tutorials and a crazy amount of help. Once you learn the basics, just go out there and start applying. Programming is an applicable and hands-on type of skill. You can only learn so much through theory. So if you want the full summary of this, learn JavaScript, HTML, and CSS before React. You don't have to know everything, but just know just enough. And once you have that down, maybe watch 2 to 3 videos on React, get a good understanding of React. And once you have JavaScript, HTML, and CSS down, try and watch a couple of videos on how React works and understanding the theory behind it. And once that is done, go straight into getting your hands dirty, do projects, keep applying, make the projects harder and harder and harder, and eventually you're going to get to the point where you truly understand React. Now, this is how I taught myself React. It may be different for you. I'm just talking about what works for me. So if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. My name is Nazar, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.